Hello, my darlings. Hello and welcome. I know it's early on, so we're going to let some people come into the room. Maybe I can raise that a little. I don't know that I can. It doesn't matter. So it's a little high, but that's okay. I'm not using my big stand, so it's just sort of it's sort of like whoa, that's my face. But anyway, I'm so glad to have you here. We're going to continue reading the adventures of Baron Munchausen. I am so excited. Actually, I'm excited to get over this book. I love this book, but I'm so excited for the next one. I've read this book. I haven't read the next one, and it is going to be so exciting. And while I'm sitting here, I really want to show you. You've seen him so many times already, but I wanted to show you my friend the devil because this guy, he makes me so happy. I just love him to death. I don't know why he makes me smile the way he does, but I there's just something about him. I just love that guy. He just and if you've been watching, his jokes are so hilarious. Maybe not always, but I love this guy. So, where did we pick off last time? I can't remember. Oh, I can't remember where we left off. But with that, I suppose I should go ahead and play pretend. As you know, I'm not wearing my jacket right now because it is so warm, and this beautiful wig, is rather warm, and it's going on my head. Looks like a dead rat, but that's okay. If you lived in the belly of a whale for a while and drove a giant acorn and met with the king of the moon, you too might be a little frazzled. So there's that. Oh, Memorial Day was yesterday, so everyone who celebrated, happy belated Memorial Day. I think it's a beautiful thing, by the way. You should do some research on it. But Memorial Day came about for people of color after the Civil War. They wanted something to commemorate the soldiers who fought and died. So that's sort of American history for you right there. Speaking of, tricorn hats and whatnot. Anyway, my darlings, let me see where we are in this old book. Ah, chapter 25th. The brave Count Gossamer, with a pair of hellfire spurs on, riding upon a sphinx, directed the whole retinue towards the Madrius. But the Count had no small share of an amiable vanity, and perceiving great multitudes of people, Gascons, and etc., assembled upon the French coast, he could not refrain from showing some singular capers, such as they had never seen before, but especially when he observed all the members of the National Assembly extended themselves along the shore. As a piece of French politeness, to honour this expedition, with Rousseau, Voltaire, and Beelzebub at their head, he set spurs to Sphinx, and at the same time cut and cracked away as hard as he could, holding in the reins with all his might, striving to make the creature plunge and show some uncommon diversions. But sulky and ill-tempered was Sphinx at the time. She plunged indeed, such a devil of a plunge, that she dashed him in one jerk over her head, and he fell precipitately into the water before her. It was in the Bay of Biscay. All the world knows of the boisterous sea, and Sphinx, fearing he would be drowned, never turned to the left nor to the right of her way, but advancing furious, just stooped her head a little and supped the poor Count off the water into her mouth, together with the quantity of 2 or 3 tons of water, which she must have taken in along with him, but which were to such an enormous creature as the Sphinx nothing more than a spoonful would be to any of you or to me. She swallowed him, but when she had got him in her stomach, his long spurs so scratched and tickled her that they produced the effect of an emetic. No sooner was he in but out with the squirted with a most horrible impetuosity. like a ball or a shell from the caliber of a mortar. Sphinx was at this time quite seasick, and the unfortunate Count was driven forth like a skyrocket, and landed upon the peak of Tenerife. Plunged over head and ears in the snow, requia in pace. I perceived all this mischief from my seat in the ark, but was in such a convulsion of laughter that I could not utter an intelligible word. And now, Sphinx, deprived of her postilion, went on in a zigzag direction, and gambolled away after a most dreadful manner. And thus had everything gone to wreck, and I not given instant orders to Gog and Magog to sally forth. They plunged into the water, and swimming on each side, got at length right before the animal, and seized the reins. Thus they continued swimming on each side like Tritons, holding the muzzle of Sphinx, while I, sallying forth astride upon the creature's back, steered forward on our voyage to Cape of Good Hope. Arriving at the Cape, I immediately gave orders to repair my former chariot and machines, which was very expeditiously performed by the excellent artists I had brought with me from Europe. And, now everything being refitted, we launched forth upon the water. Perhaps there never was anything seen more glorious or more august. 'Twas magnificent to behold Sphinx make her obeisance on the water, and the crickets chirp upon the bulls in the return of the salute, while Gog and Magog, advancing, took the reins of the great John Mowmowsky, and leading towards us, chariot and all, instantly disposed of them to the forepart of the ark by nooks and eyes, and tackled Sphinx before all the bulls. Thus the whole had most tremendous and triumphal appearance. In front floated forward the mighty Sphinx, with Gog and Magog on each side. Next followed in order the bulls, with crickets upon their heads, and then advanced the chariot of Queen Mab, containing the curious seat and orrery of heaven. After which appeared the boat and ark of the council, overtopped with 2 balloons, which gave an air of greater lightness and elegance to the whole. I placed in the galleries, under the balloons and on the backs of the bulls, a number of excellent vocal performers, with martial music of clarinets and trumpets. They sang the watery dangers and the pomp of the deep Celine. The sun shone glorious on the water, while the procession advanced towards the land under the 500 arches of ice, illuminated with coloured lights, and adorned in the most grotesque and fanciful style with seaweed, elegant festoons, and shells of every kind, while 1,000 waterspouts danced eternally before and after us, attracting the water from the sea in a kind of cone, and suddenly uniting the most fantastical thunder and lightning. Having landed our whole retinue, we immediately began to proceed towards the heart of Africa, but first thought it expedient to place a number of wheels under the ark for its greater facility of advancing. We journeyed nearly due north for several days, and met with nothing remarkable except the astonishment of the savage natives to behold our equipage. The Dutch government at the Cape, to do them justice, gave us every possible assistance for the expedition. I presume they received instruction on the head from their high mightiness in Holland. However, they presented us with a specimen of some of the most excellent of their Cape wine, and showed us every politeness in their power. As to the face of the country, as we advanced, it appeared in many places capable of every cultivation and of abundant fertility. The natives and Hottentots of this part of Africa have been frequently described by travellers, and therefore it is not necessary to say any more about them. But in the more interior parts of Africa, the appearance, manners, and genius of the people are totally different. We directed our course to the compass and the stars, getting every day prodigious quantity of game in the woods, and at night encamping with proper enclosure for fear of the wild beasts. One whole day in particular, we heard on every side among the hills the horrible roaring of lions, resounding from rock to rock like broken thunder. It seemed as if there was a general rendezvous of all these savage animals to fall upon our party. That whole day we advanced with caution. Our hunters scarcely ventured beyond pistol shot from the caravan, for fear of dissolution. At night, we encamped, as usual, and threw up a circular entrenchment round our tents. We had scarce retired to repose when we found ourselves serenaded by at least 1,000 lions, approaching, equally on every side, and within 100 paces. Our cattle showed the most horrible symptoms of fear. All trembling and in cold perspiration, I directly ordered the whole company to stand to their arms and not make any noise by firing till I should command them. I then took a large quantity of tar, which I had brought with our caravan for that purpose, and strewed it in a continued stream around the encampment, within which circle of tar I immediately placed another train or circle of gunpowder, and having taken this precaution, I anxiously waited the lions' approach. These dreadful animals, knowing, I presume, the force of our troop, advanced very slowly, and with caution, approaching on every side of us with an equal pace, and growling in hideous concert, so as to resemble an earthquake, or some similar convulsion of the world. When they had at length advanced, and steeped all their paws in the tar, they put their nose to it, smelling it as if it were blood, and daubed their great bushy hair and whiskers with it to equal their paws. At that very instant, when in concert they were to give the mortal dart upon us, I discharged a pistol at the train of gunpowder, which instantly exploded on every side, made all the lions recoil in general uproar and take to flight. With the utmost precipitation, in an instant, we could behold them, scattered through the woods at some distance, roaring in agony and moving about like so many will-o'-the-wisps, their paws and faces all on fire from the tar and gunpowder. I then ordered the general pursuit. We followed them on every side, through the woods, their own light serving as our guide, until before the rising of the sun we followed into their fastness, and shot or otherwise destroyed every one of them. And during the whole of our journey after, we never heard the roaring of a lion, nor did any wild beast presume to make another attack upon our party, which shows the excellence of immediate presence of mind, and the terror inspired into the most savage enemies by a proper and well-timed proceeding. We at length arrived on the confines of the immeasurable desert, an immense plain extending on every side of us like an ocean. Not a tree, nor a shrub, nor a blade of grass was to be seen, but all appeared an extreme fine sand, mixed with gold dust and little sparkling pearls. The gold dust and pearls appeared to us in little value, because we could have no expectation of returning to England for considerable time. We observed at great distance something like a smoke arising just over the verge of the horizon, and looking with our telescopes, we perceived it to be a whirlwind tearing up the sand and tossing it about in our heavens with frightful impetuosity. I immediately ordered my company to erect a mound around us of great size, which we did with astonishing labour and perseverance, and then roofed it over with certain planks and timber which we had with us for the purpose. Our labour was scarcely finished when the sand came rolling in like the waves of the sea. 'Twas a storm and a river of sand united. It continued to advance in the same direction without intermission for 3 days, and completely covered over all of the mound we had erected, and buried us all within. The intense heat of the place was intolerable, but guessing by the cessation of the noise that the storm was past, we set about digging a passage to the light of day again, which we effected in a very short time, and ascending, perceived that the whole had been so completely covered but one continued plain, with inequalities of ridges on it, like the waves of the sea. We soon extricated our vehicle and retinue from the burning sands, but not without great danger, as the heat was very violent, and began to proceed on our voyage. Storms of sand of similar nature several times attacked us, but by using the same precautions we preserved ourselves from destruction. Having travelled more than 9,000 miles over this inhospitable plain, exposed to the perpendicular rays of burning sun, without ever meeting a rivet or a shower from heaven to refresh us, we at length became almost desperate, when, to our inexpressible joy, we beheld some mountains at great distance, and on our nearer approach observed them covered with a carpet of verdure, and groves and woods. Nothing could appear more romantic or beautiful than the rocks and precipices, intermingled with flowing waters and shrubs of every kind, and palm trees of such prodigious size as to surpass anything ever seen in Europe. Fruits of all kinds appeared growing wild in the utmost abundance, and antelope and sheep and buffaloes wandered about the groves and valleys in profusion. The trees resounded with the melody of birds, and everything displayed a general scene of rural happiness and joy. Chapter 26. Thank you. Thank you, Nye. My moustache was rather unkempt, but again, I'm the Baron, and I've just been in the burning deserts of Africa, so you can forgive me if my moustache does droop ever so slightly. Chapter the 26th. Having passed over nearest mountains, we entered a delightful vale, where we perceived a multitude of persons, at least of living bulls, whose flesh they cut away with great knives, making the table of the creature's carcass. Serenaded by the bellowing of the unfortunate animals, nothing seemed requisite to add the barbarity of the feast but the kava, made as described in Cook's Voyages, and at conclusion of the feast we perceived them brewing this liqueur, which they drank with the utmost avidity. From that moment, inspired with an idea of universal benevolence, I determined to abolish the custom of eating live flesh and drinking of kava, but I knew that such a thing could not be immediately effected, whatever in future time might be performed. Having rested ourselves during a few days, we determined to set out towards the principal city of the empire. The singularity of our appearance was spoken all over the country as phenomenon. The multitude looked upon the Sphinx, the bulls, the crickets, the balloons, and with whole company as something more than terrestrial, but especially the thunder of our firearms, which struck horror and amazement into the whole of this nation. We at length arrived at the metropolis, situated on the banks of the noble river, and the emperor, attended by all of his court, came out in grand procession to meet us. The emperor appeared mounted on a dromedary, royally caparisoned, with all of his attendants on foot, through respect for his majesty. He was rather above in middle stature of that country, 4 feet 3 inches in height, with a countenance like all of the countrymen, as white as snow. He was preceded by a band of the most exquisite music, according to the fashion of the country, and this whole retinue halted within about 50 paces of our troop. We returned the salute by a discharge of musketry, and a flourish of our trumpets and martial music. I commanded our caravan to halt, and dismounting advanced uncovered with only 2 attendants towards his majesty. The emperor was equally polite, and descended from his dromedary, advanced to meet me. I am happy, said he, to have the honour to receive so illustrious a traveller, and assure you that everything in my empire shall be at your disposal. Well, I thanked his majesty for his politeness, and expressed how happy I was to meet so polished and refined a people in the centre of Africa, and that I hoped to show myself and company grateful for his esteem by introducing the arts and the sciences of Europe among the people. I immediately perceived the true descent of this people, which does not appear of terrestrial origin, but descended from some of the inhabitants of the moon, because of the principal language spoken there, and the centre of Africa is very nearly the same. Their alphabet and method of writing are pretty much the same, and show the extreme antiquity of the people and their exalted origin. I here give you a specimen of their writing. Vidi octricos de orig, 46, Serenga da Scooptop. Here, you can see that right there. You can translate that. These characters I have submitted to the inspection of the celebrated antiquarian, and it will be proved to the satisfaction of everyone in his next volume what an immediate intercourse there must have been between the inhabitants of the moon and the ancient Scythians, which Scythians did not by any means inhabit a part of Russia, but the central part of Africa, as I can abundantly prove to my very learned and laborious friend. The above words written in our characters are Serenga Dana Skuthop, that is, the Scythians are heavenly origin. The word Skengra, which signifies Scythians, is compounded of skre or sre, whence our present English word sire or sir, and na or na, no, na, edge, because the Scythians united the essentials of nobility, and learning together, na signifies heaven or belonging to the moon, from Duna, who was anciently worshipped as the goddess of that luminary, and Skothup signifies the origin or beginning of anything, from sku, the name used in the moon to the point in geometry, and top or hotop, vegetation. These words are inscribed this day upon the pyramid on the center of Africa, nearly at the source of the river Niger. And if anyone refuses his assent, he may go there to be convinced. The emperor conducted me to his court amidst the administration of his courtiers, and paid us every possible politesse that African magnificence could bestow. He never presumed to proceed on any expedition without consulting us, and looking upon us as species of superior beings, paid the greatest respect to our opinions. He frequently asked me about the states of Europe and the kingdoms of Great Britain, and appeared lost in admiration at the account I gave him of our shipping and the immensity of the ocean. We taught him to regulate the government nearly on the same plan with the British Constitution, and to institute a parliament and degree of nobility. His Majesty was the last of his royal line, and his decease, with the unanimous consent of the people, made heir to the whole empire. The nobility of the chiefs of the country immediately waited upon me with petitions entreating me to accept the government. I consulted with my friends Gog and Magog, and etc., and after much consultation, it was agreed that I should accept the government, not as actual and independent monarch of the place, but as a viceroy to his Majesty of England. I now thought it high time to do away with the custom of eating live flesh and drinking of the kava, and for that purpose used every persuasive method to wean the majority of the people from it. This, to my astonishment, was not taken in good part by the nation, and they looked with jealousy at those strangers who wanted to make innovations amongst them. Nevertheless, I felt much concerned to think that my fellow creatures could be capable of such barbarity. I did everything in the heart fraught with universal benevolence and goodwill to all mankind could be capable of desiring. I first tried every method of persuasion and incitement. I did not harshly reprove them, and I invited frequently whole thousands to dine after the fashions of Europe. Upon roasted meat, alas, 'twas all in vain. My goodness nearly excited a sedation. They murmured amongst themselves, spoke of my intentions, my wild and ambitious views, as if I, oh heaven, could have had any personal interested motive in making them live like men rather than like crocodiles and tigers. In fine, perceiving that gentleness could be of no avail, well, knowing that when commonplaisance was effect, nothing from such spirits compulsion excites respect and veneration, I prohibited under the pain of severest penalties the drinking of kava or eating of live flesh, for the space of 9 days, within the districts of Angular and Papagalna. But this created such universal abhorrence and destitution of my government that my ministers and even myself were universally pasquinoid, lampoon, satires, ridicule, and insult were showered upon us in the name of Munchausin, wherever it was mentioned. And in fine, there was never a government so much detested, or with such little reason. In this dilemma, I had recourse to advice of my noble friend Hilaro Frosticos. In his good sense, I now expected some resource of the rest of the council, who had advised me to the former method, had given but a poor specimen of their abilities and discernment, or I should have succeeded more happily. In short, he addressed himself to me, to the council of followers. It is in vain, most noble Munchausin, that your excellency endeavours to compel or force these people to life to which they have never been accustomed. In vain do you tell them that apple pies, pudding, roast beef, minced pies, or tarts are delicious, that sugar is sweet, that wine is exquisite? Alas, they cannot. They will not comprehend what deliciousness is, what sweetness, or what the flavour of the grape. And even if they were convinced of the superior excellence of your way of life, never would they be persuaded, and that, if for no other reason, but because force or persuasion is employed to induce them to it. Abandon that idea for the present, and let us try another method. My opinion, therefore, is that we should at once cease all endeavours to compel or persuade them, but let us, if possible, procure a quantity of fudge from England, and carelessly scatter it over all of the country. And from this disposal of matters, I presume, nay, I have a moral certainty that we shall reclaim this people from horror and barbarity. Had this been proposed at any other time, it would have been violently opposed in the council. But now, when every other attempt had failed, when there seemed no other resource, the majority willingly submitted to they knew not what, for they absolutely had no idea of the manner or the possibility of success, or how they could bring matters to bear. However, 'twas a scheme, and as such they submitted. For my part, I listened with ecstasy to the words of Hilario Frosticos, for I knew that he had a most singular knowledge of humankind, and could humour and persuade them on their own happiness and universal good. Therefore, according to the advice of Hilario, I dispatched the balloon for 4 men over the desert to the Cape of Good Hope, with letters to be forwarded to England, requiring without delay a few cargoes of fudge. The people had all this time remained in general state of ferment and murmur. Everything that rancour, low wit, and deplorable ignorance could conceive to asperse my government, was put in execution. The most worthy, even the most beneficent actions, everything that was amiable, were perverted into opposition. The heart of Munchausin was not made of such impenetrable stuff as to insensible to be to the hatred of even the most worthless wretch in the whole kingdom, and once at a general assembly of the states, filled with an idea of such continued ingratitude, I spoke as pathetic as possible. Not, methought, beneath my dignity to make them feel for me that the universal good and happiness of the people were all I had wished or desired. That if my actions had been mistaken or improper surmises formed, still I had no wish, no desire, but the public welfare and etc., etc., etc. Hilario Frosticos was all this time much disturbed. He looked sternly at me, he frowned. But I was so engrossed with the warmth of my heart, my intentions, that I understood him not. In a minute I saw nothing, as if through a cloud. Such is the force of amiable sensibility. Lords, ladies, chiefs, the whole assembly seemed to swim before my sight. The more I thought on my good intentions, the lampoons which so affected my delicacy, good nature, tenderness, I forgot myself. I spoke rapid, violent, benevolence, fire, tenderness. Alas, I melted into tears. Pish, pish, said Hilario Frosticos. Now indeed was my government lampooned, satirized, carbonaded, bepickled, and bedeviled. One day, with my arm full of lampoons, I started up as Hilario entered the room. The tears in my eyes. Look here, Hilario. How can I bear all this? It is impossible to please them. I will leave the government. I cannot bear it. See what pitiful anecdotes, what surmises I will make my people feel for me. I will leave the government. Pshaw, said Hilario. At that simple monosyllable, I found myself changed as if by magic, for I ever looked on Hilario as a person so experienced, such fortitude, such good sense. There are 3 sail under the convoy of frigate, added Hilario, just arrived at the Cape after a fortunate passage laden with the fudge that we demanded. No time it is to be lost. Let it be immediately conducted hither and disturbed through the principal granaries of the empire. 27th chapter. Some time after I ordered the following proclamation to be published in the court of the Gazette and in all other papers in the empire. By the most mighty and puissant lord, his excellency, the Lord Baron Munchausin, whereas a quantity of fudge has been distributed throughout all of the granaries of the empire for the particular uses, and as the natives have ever expressed their aversion to all manner of European eatables, it is hereby strictly forbidden, under pain of the severest penalties, for any of the officers charged with the keeping of said fudge to give, sell, or suffer to be sold any part or quantity whatever of said material until it is agreeable unto our good will and pleasure. Munchausin. Dated in our castle, Gristariska, this triskel of the month of Grish, in the year Mulinsarga Navas Kashkana Veldish. This proclamation excited the most ardent curiosity all over the empire. Do you know what this fudge is? Said the lady Mushkaresti to Lord Darrengarl. Fudge, said he. Fudge? Know what fudge means? I mean, replied her ladyship, the enormous quantity of fudge that has been distributed under guards in all of these strong places in the empire, and which is strictly forbidden to be sold or given to any of the natives under the severest penalties. Lord, replied he, what in the name of wonder can it be? Forbidden? Why, it must. But pray, do you, Lady Farashashna, do you know what this fudge is? Do you, Lord Trastlew? Or you, Miss Gristalusk? What? Nobody knows what this fudge can be? It engrossed for several days the chit-chat of the whole empire. Fudge, 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 resounded in all companies and in all places, from the rising until the setting of the sun. And even at night, when the gentle sleep refreshed the rest of the mortals, the ladies of all of that country were dreaming of fudge. Upon my honour, said Kitty, as she was adjusting her modesty piece before the glass, just after getting out of bed, there is scarce anything I would not give to know what this fudge can be. La, my dear, replied Miss Kilnaraska, I have been dreaming the whole night of nothing but fudge. I thought my lover kissed my hand and pressed it to his bosom, while I, frowning, endeavoured to wrest it from him. That I kneeled at my feet. No, never, never will I look at you, cried I, till you tell me what this fudge can be, or get me some of it. Begone, cried I, with all the dignity of offended beauty, majesty, and the tragic queen, begone. Never see me more, or bring me this delicious fudge. He swore on the honour of a knight that he would wander o'er the world, encounter every danger, perish in the attempt, or satisfy the angel of his soul. The chiefs and nobility of this nation, when they met together to drink their kava, spoke of nothing but fudge. Men, women, children, all talked of nothing but fudge. 'Twas a fury of curiosity, one general firmament of universal fervour. Nothing but fudge could allay it. But in one respect they all agreed, that the government must have had some interested view in giving such positive orders to preserve it and keep it from the natives of the country. Petitions were addressed to me from all quarters, from every corporation and body of men in the whole of the empire. The majority of the people instructed their constituents, and their parliament presented a petition, praying that I would be pleased to take the state of the nation under consideration, and give orders to satisfy the people, or the most dreadful consequences were to be apprehended. To these requests, at the entreaty of my council, I made no reply, or at best but unsatisfactory answers. Curiosity was on the rack. They forgot to lampoon the government. So engaged were they about the fudge, the great assembly of the states could think of nothing else. Instead of enacting laws for the regulation of people, instead of consulting what should seem most wise and excellent, they could think, talk, and harangue of nothing but fudge. In vain did the speaker call to order. The more checks they got, the more extravagant and inquisitive they were. In short, the populace in many places rose in the most outrageous and tumultuous manner, forced open their granaries in all places in one day, and triumphantly distributed the fudge through the whole of the empire. Whether on account of longing, the great curiosity, imagination, or the disposition of the people, I cannot say, but they found it infinitely to their taste. 'Twas an intoxication of joy, satisfaction, and applause. Finding how much they liked this fudge, I procured another quantity from England, much greater than the former, and cautiously bestowed it over all of the kingdom. Thus were their affections of the people regained, and they from hence began to venerate, applaud, and admire my government more than ever. The following ode was performed at the castle, in the most superb style, and universally admired. Ode, ye bulls and crickets, and Gog and Magog, and trumpets high chiming anthropog. Come sing blithe choral in all og. Carlog, basilog, fog and bog. Great and superb appears thy cap sublime, admired and worshipped as the rising sun, solemn, majestic wise, like hoary time, and famed alike for virtue, sense, and fun. Then swell the noble strain with song and elegance divine, while goddess around shall throng, and all of the muses nine, and bulls and crickets and Gog and Magog and trumpets chiming anthropog shall sing blithe choral in og, carlog, basilog, fog, and bog. This piece of poetry was much applauded, admired, and encorded in every public assembly, celebrated as an astonished effort of my genius, and the music composed by Mynheer Gastrogbark, Barger Barwushkark, was thought equal to sense. Never was there anything so universally admired, the summit of the most exquisite wit, the keenest praise of the most excellent music. Upon my honour, and the faith I owe my love, and I, music may be talked of in England, but to possess the very soul of harmony, the world should come to the performances of the Ode Lady Fraginita, was, at that moment, drumming with her fingers on the edge of her fan, lost in reverie, thinking she was playing upon, was it a forte piano? No, my dear Fraginita, said I tenderly, taking her in my arms while she melted into tears. Never, never will I play upon any other. Oh, 'twas divine to see her like summer's morning, all blushing and full of dew. With that, my beauties, I'm going to end here. We shall return next week. Look how close we are. Oh, and I wanted to talk a little about Friday. So, I'm not certain what time, because I'm supposed to be doing an interview with someone.
11:30 a.m.
Oh, that's the interview, 11:30 a.m. Okay, brilliant. I didn't know when that was. So, when we do our live readings, if you would like to get a free reading from me, you may email one question only, contact me through the Gentleman Psychic, and this Friday, everyone who emails with free reading in the headline, and in the email, one question will get a free reading. In order to get a free reading, you have to email thegentlemanpsychic.com. You have to for the free reading. I hope that makes it clear. I'll make a post on the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams, but for now that we're talking, you and me and us and they and he and she and we and them, if you would like a free reading, please go to, I thank you, Nye. I thought you might get a kick out of that. Please go to thegentlemanpsychic.com. Send me free reading in the headline and one question. Thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you for everyone who is joining me in the future. And again, I appreciate you. I look forward to next time. Oh, you have to say one more time before I go. You have to say goodnight to my friend the devil. He's very sensitive. Good night. Good night, my friend the devil. Good night, everyone. Can you wave to them? I think you can. See? Oh, see how good he is. See how smart. What a clever man. Anyway, my beauties, I love you. I will talk to you next time. Make certain to watch for more videos. We've got some great ones coming out. I appreciate you. I adore you. Love, love, love. Good night. I can never remember how to turn this off.